thanks for joining us today for Breaking Through Bottlenecks, Baptist Health's Content Supply Chain Journey and Modernization Story. I have a couple of folks with me today that I'd like to introduce you to. But before we get started with that, a little bit of housekeeping. As we go through the day, we're going to be talking about a lot of material. We're going to cover content supply chain, what it means to your organization, why it's important. We're going to hear from Alex around Baptist's individual story and their unique journey as they've transitioned from a unoptimized content supply chain to a modernized content supply chain. We'll hear from Travis and Emily, give us a little bit of context as to how Merge and Adobe can contribute. So throughout, if you could, please, if you have a question, use the Q&A box in the webinar. Oops, sorry, there we go. Use the Q&A box in the webinar, and we'll collect those throughout, and hopefully we'll have 10 to 15 minutes at the end, as long as I don't overtalk my time, to get us going. So let's see here real quick. One last housekeeping item. Sorry. Here we go. All right, here we go. Sorry. Should be seeing my agenda, hopefully. All right, so I'm going to give you, I promise, the briefest tour of who Merge is, just so you know who we are and what we're talking about. Then I really want to introduce you to the individuals who have joined me today, because they're what's important about this webinar. We'll take a brief minute to define content supply chain, understand what we mean when we say it. You'll actually hear a couple of different versions of it, because content supply chain is so complex. But then that's as a level set. And then really, we want to get into the panel discussion, have you hear from Alex, Travis, and Emily as quickly as possible. So to that effect, let me jump forward. A little bit about Merge. So we deliver storytelling through technology to promote health and wellness. We're a purpose-built agency that understands that everything in the modern era is digital. We're dealing with the advent and uprise of AI technology as it empowers us as marketing professionals and in advertising, and really understanding that it takes all of that together to communicate and create experiences for our end user. We're uniquely qualified to talk about content supply chain and the technologies that underlie it, the platforms, the code, the operational workflows, if you will. We've got about 225 associates in our technology group with an average of 10 years of experience each. And really and truly, we focus on the core platforms that are used in modern marketing technology. As promised, that's all I'm going to tell you about Merge today. If you would like to know more, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you for as long as you want about Merge. But let's talk to our folks on the phone with us today and learn a little bit more about Alex, Emily, and Travis. So Alex, if you wouldn't mind, please get us started. A little bit about you. And if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about Baptist Health South Florida as an organization as a part of your intro.
Sure. Thank you, Kier. So I'm Alex Pena, Director of Marketing Technology for Baptist Health. So just to give you a background there, we're a 12 hospital system. We span all of South Florida. So think all the way down from the Lower Keys all the way up to North Palm Beach County. We are, the largest in the region. So basically about 200 outpatient centers and a little over 28,000 employees. And then in my role, I oversee the marketing technology stack. So various internal and external systems, along with the various integrations and working with our partners. But for this conversation specifically on content supply chain, we'll be talking about some of the internal marketing tools that fall under my team. So that's Adobe Workfront and AEM assets is where we'll mainly be concentrating.
Great, awesome. Emily, how about you?
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Rice. I'm with Adobe's Digital Strategy Group. At Adobe, we help organizations deliver the right content to the right consumers at the right time. And we do this through our 3 clouds: Document, Creative, and Experiences. And as part of Adobe's Digital Strategy Group, I work with our healthcare organizations to help line up what they're trying to do from a strategy perspective to how Adobe can help. So looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And last and certainly not least, since he's my peer and colleague, Travis, a few words on yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Kier. My name is Travis Melton. I'm a solutions architect here at Merge. My focus, my purview is within the Adobe ecosystem, specifically in the content supply chain arena, seeing how these systems integrate together and helping clients and agencies and organizations like Baptist Health pull their whole system together so that they are able to execute on their marketing vision is really my passion.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. And I know that we really want to hear from our trio of panelists about their individual experience and hear more about Baptist. But let's do a quick level set just to make sure that we all know what we're talking about. And then when we say content supply chain, we mean the same thing. Because honestly, I don't know who coined it. The first time I ever heard it was actually from an Adobe individual. So I assume that Adobe made this up. That may or may not be true. But really and truly, if you think of it, it's a metaphor for how we deliver content across different channels. We have multiple channels, we have data silos, we have systems, we have multiple authors, we have external content, internal content, we have so much content, right? Making sure that the right content gets to the right people is what content supply chain is all about. And it's one of the fundamental drivers of a personalized experience. And what massive amounts of research, both that we've done here at Merge and that have been done by others, shows that consumers want personalized experience that delivers content that feels made just for them, right? This is becoming an accelerating need. This isn't something that we're saying like, oh, it was a flash in the pan in 2022 and now people are okay with generic one-size-fits-all content. No, the want and the need for highly personalized content is only increasing, all while only in just the last year, we have seen 3,000 new marketing technology platforms enter the market. This is in an already crowded space. So while trying to deliver these personalized experiences, we're trying to understand which platforms hold the data, send the data, approve the data, maintain the data, and there's fractures along the way, right? In addition to that, just in the last year, we saw 17 new privacy laws and regulations introduced globally that can impact review cycles, process. How do we keep track of which assets have we reviewed and haven't we based on new compliance regulation? That's much harder than developing a new piece of content, right? Big challenge. All while only 6% of those surveyed said that they felt that their organization, their marketing organization, was capable of unifying customer data. Only 6%. And similarly, only 6% of organizations surveyed use AI to identify and enable personalization opportunities. There's a lot of reasons why we can't reach that goal. We're going to talk about it a little bit today. All while we'll see a 13.3% increase in spending predicted through 2027, right? So we're heavily investing, but we're not necessarily making the progress that we want for all that investment, all while trying to navigate, 2,000, 3,000 new marketing technology products and artificial intelligence, right? And this brings us to the content conundrum. How do we scale content for personalization? Because as we move from this one-size-fits-all approach to unique experiences, it comes with a cost. It comes with a worthwhile cost, but a cost nonetheless. The easiest way for me to think about it, because of my engineering background, is in numbers. So let's just say company could be a healthcare provider system with 6 service lines, or it could be a company with 6 different products. On average, you're going to need about 25 assets per product per service. You're going to need then 4 campaigns compounds that. And now keep in mind, these aren't all necessarily net new, but when I think of assets and I think of the responsibility of how they're assigned to a campaign and to a product, we have to know if regulations have changed. We have to know if imagery is out of date. We have to know if the brand standards have changed. So even if we're reusing content and we're modifying content, these numbers still hold when we think of the content that we have to manage and distribute across our channels, right? So then let's say on top of that, we have 2 regions and we add 25 personalization facets in total. We're looking at, in just this rough math, about 30,000 different assets that we have to manage. So you can see where the real jump happens is when we go from creating one-size-fits-all content across multiple channels and multiple campaigns, and we start personalizing for individuals. And this can be as simple as age demographic, region, or it can be more complex where we're actually analyzing behavior and making offers based on the individual themselves. That's one-to-one personalization. That's the goal. One-to-one personalization makes these numbers even worse, and my job today was not to freak everybody out, so I'm not even going to show that. But the good news is that there's an answer. And no, understanding the problem is how we address it. So we know that ROI is derived from customer engagement. And we know that we have a lot of different teams creating content in a lot of different ways. Not all of it's marketing content per se, but it needs to be used in a marketing context. So how we manage this process, ensure that these various content assets are appropriate for device, form factor, channel of distribution, and the production teams who are making them understand what they need to do, is the heart of the challenge. And it leads us to the result of the content conundrum is that your team is brimming with brilliant ideas and you're creating amazing content, but you're not meeting your goals. Maybe your marketing campaigns aren't falling flat, but you're not seeing the potential that you wanted to realize when you started investing in your technology. And the truth is, the problem isn't the quality of your content, but the journey that it takes to get from to its customers. When the content supply chain is broken, those powerful ideas get stuck in the ether and they can't find the right person. And it's very typical, we see this a lot, of what is the right content and a brilliant idea to one person falls flat if they don't have the context necessary to appreciate it. That's where personalization comes in. Okay. So at high level, the cost of a broken content supply chain is inconsistent messaging across channels, much slower time to market for new assets and new creative, wasted resources and inefficiencies, poor content performance, and maybe more importantly than all of these, you risk compliance and legal action because if your content was in compliance when you created it, but you're not able to monitor it and determine if it needs to be updated, you can fall out of compliance pretty easily, right? Good news. There's an answer. It's only in 4 steps with a lot of bullets underneath it. And really, though, this is it's a concept of how do we apply a process, people, technology solution to content. That's what content supply chain is. And every organization has one. It's one of my joys, my nerdy joys, is telling people who say like, oh, I need to get a content supply chain. And it's like, if you have a writer printing off a piece of paper and handing it to a designer, you have a content supply chain. Optimization of that supply chain is everything. And that's where we go through plan, produce, deliver, and analyze. And this works. And then when we add AI to your content supply chain, it's a powerful component that can increase what your team is able to do and can help you monitor for compliance and regulation and can help you monitor for content age. And it can even go so far as to help you assess the quality of the content's impact on your desired audiences. And there's lots of types that we do this. There's agents and generative AI. There's complete AI automation that's coming down the pipeline where tasks that were laborious but important are now being compressed into a much shorter time period. And we have full out AI-driven customer experiences that we now have to determine what is good and what is bad in those when we're not at the keyboard, quote unquote, anymore. So it's a lot to deal with. And the good news is one of the reasons that we love all of our partners, but we love Adobe, is they have a bevy of products that support each one of these phases and can be introduced into your stack. As Alex said in his intro, today we're going to focus on the workflow and plannings, and we're going to focus specifically on Workfront and how that's made a change at Baptist Health South Florida. But hopefully it'll give you an insight into how it's people, processes, and then technology. And I think Alex is really going to help us understand that in a very personal way with the Baptist story. But that's our focus for today. So hopefully that helps with just the general understanding of what we mean when we say content supply chain. So let's get to the reason that you're actually here and talk to our panel about their individual experiences. So I'm going to stop the share because we don't actually need that for this next section. There you go. All right, Alex. So I am going to pick on you first because I've known you the longest, believe it or not. Even Travis and I haven't worked together as long as you and I have worked together. And I love the Baptist Health Organization and I know the journey you've been through, but can you help us understand what challenges did you face that really made this initiative so important, that made you realize the issue is with our content supply chain, it's not with the content itself?
Yeah, for sure. So I arrived at Baptist probably, I think it's like 4.5 years now, which is crazy to me that it's been that long already. But there was no centralized project management tool. That was actually one of the first questions I asked, and I frankly got a lot of blank stares back, which was a little nerve-wracking. But teams were operating in silos, and there was really a disconnected process. Everybody was tracking their projects either by email or Excel sheets, Word docs. There was some sort of project tools for some teams, some for others, but everything was scattered and it was unsearchable. So really what happened was it resulted in a lack of transparency and no visibility into how other teams were working on. So you can imagine there was a lot of duplication and things happening and it was really difficult to spot inefficiencies and then just duplication everywhere. And so we had a lot of like, approval delays due to long email chains. So it really became apparent that what we needed to build was really just a transparent and tons of visibility and alignment so that everybody can work as one team.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And honestly, just hearing you describe that, like my anxiety level was just like going higher and higher and higher because it really is a problem. So I
Yep.
got, I'm sure everybody would want to know what was the turning point? Like what was the turning point or the decision that started the transformation process where you felt things getting better?
Okay, so as you can say, we took kind of an unorthodox approach. We decided that we wanted to take some of the everyday operational needs so that we can get folks into the tool. So we started actually with bringing in PTO requests, right? People love PTO. You need your PTO. If you want to request it, you got to come into the tool. And so that started to increase some of the comfort and familiarity with the tool. And then little by little, we kept adding more and more, different things. POs, we brought those into the tool. Excuse me, and that kind of brought in more folks into the tool. So then all the essential day-to-day tasks, those started coming in, and then we started adding workflows and everything else, and then little by little everything kind of organically evolved into the single source of truth for working across marketing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I love it. I mean, and just, this concept of we're going to start with like an inorganic, incentive, like, because yes, PTO, it's one of my favorite things about work too. I don't know about you. So I totally agree with you. And that I love that. That's such a great approach. And I'm sure the employees appreciated it, right? Because change management is the hardest thing about these. But you mentioned something about everybody kind of coming together and it organically taking life at some point, right? Like you had to feed the engine, but at some point the employees took it and ran with it. So, knowing how important collaboration is to Baptist Health South Florida, what role did that internal collaboration play in achieving the success? How important was it?
Really important. Within marketing, as you know, Kerry, we have tons of teams.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, we're actually a pretty big group by most standards. We're over 130 people. Where there's different teams working on different things. So it was just meeting with those teams and documenting their unique process step by step, focusing mainly on listening first. So they can show you how they work, and then it's like, okay, how can we mirror that within Workfront and within AM assets and all the different tools that we're using, and create these customized workflows that are tailored to each of those teams. That mapping process really revealed a lot of inefficiencies. It uncovered unnecessary handoffs and redundant steps and outdated approval processes.
Mm.
So we were able to take that, remove some of those extra steps before those workflows went live. But that built a lot of trust, proving to teams that Workfront was designed around their reality, and it wasn't something that was just kind of pushed down, pushed top down.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think, you highlight something that is really important in this process that we often don't think about is that trust, right? Like I love the way that you built iteratively towards the goal and allowed people to build trust, not just in Workfront, but honestly in your group, helping through with this transition and really being kind of a beacon of we know it's hard, we know it's going to impact you negatively in the short term, but long term, just wait until you see the benefits. That's just a beautiful approach. Love it. Thank you, Alex. Let's see. Now that we've unpacked your story a little bit, I think, we've just scratched the surface, but maybe shift gears for a second. Let's talk about operational improvements at the heart of it. Travis, I'll pick on you. Broader, within healthcare for sure, but even just what you see as you are helping organizations assess and optimize their content supply chains, what common delivery bottlenecks do you see, and what do you specifically see as a challenge in healthcare?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that, across the board, there are going to be consistent issues that companies and organizations face when they're looking at optimizing their content supply chain. And consistent issues, you've heard Alex mention this a few times today, issues like siloed systems and teams, right? The idea of having all of these different tool sets that are kind of bespoke and being used by their own individual sections within the organization, but they're unable to communicate with each other. the siloed teams individually. Like these teams are off on an island somewhere and they have no access to the rest of the organization. What's actually going on? What content can I use? What content shouldn't I use? All these kinds of questions produce inefficiencies in the content supply chain, and we see that time and time again. Another option or concept of a consistent issue that we're seeing is manual workflows and approval processes. Alex mentioned people tracking projects on Excel spreadsheets and through Word documents. Also, the communication pipeline through like Teams chat, GChat, or Slack. Any kind of method of communication that is bespoke or outside of some sort of standard is in effect an opportunity to create inefficiency in this supply chain. It does get a little bit more specific when we start talking about healthcare. We also have the issues around HIPAA and FDA. So what are your compliance and regulatory constraints as an organization? Identifying those and seeing how your tool set can then work to mitigate or streamline those processes is also a really important tool that we have identified the content supply chain optimization process to actually produce solutions for. It gets into personalization at scale, really delivering the right kind of content to the right person at the right time. And when we're developing all of the content that we're doing in an organization, how are these tools aligned to help us do that at an efficient process or efficient pace? And that's really the heart of the question that we're trying to get to in this.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I am sure you must have countless anecdotes of organizations that they're like, hey man, we know that we've been here, right? This is our seventh try at this. And having that breakthrough and showing how it can work and breaking through those bottlenecks is just it's great for them and it must be so fulfilling for you and your teams. So I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning. We've actually been working with the Baptist Health South Florida group for almost 17 years, longer than I think actually anybody on this webinar has worked at any of the agencies. But and we've worked in a lot of different ways. And in recent history, we've started working with Alex and team in this new way. Can you walk us through some of the key steps that have taken at Baptist to help streamline content workflows and how we participated in that?
Absolutely. So technologically speaking, the first step that Baptist Health took was moving the organization into this project management, program management tool set with Workfront. This happened, about 4 years ago. That got them off of the Excel documents. It got them out of using Teams. So all these communication processes and pipelines were contained in one tool. By doing that, it increases transparency across the organization. By definition, when you increase transparency, you increase efficiencies. That's the way communication works. I'm going to step off of my soapbox about communication right there, and I'm going to continue with this conversation. Once we got through implementing Workfront, we're looking at now, they've in 2024, they actually implemented AEM assets. So now we're getting not just from the program management side of things, but we're getting into the actual content that's being delivered side of things. And by integrating these two systems, the ultimate goal of going into AEM assets was to actually do the direct integration between these two systems. The tool sets are designed, they are natively integrated to be able to work together. By putting these tools together, you not only have an efficient process and communication tool set for managing the work that's being done for content creation, but you also have a direct integration to the place that content is going to be stored, which is also an activation hub. If you just talk about systems engineering for a second, you're getting to the point where you have a straight line between ideation and deployment. And when you have that straight line, you get the most efficient direction and most efficient timeline from one point to the other. The next phase in this project that we're going to be looking at is really the focus on delivery. So we've done the ideation, concepting, program management side, business process development in all of that, moving into the asset storage and delivery side, but then now focusing on the actual execution. How are we getting that content to the right person at the right time? So by looking at all of these different phases and optimizing the tool sets and the business processes across the board, that's where we're really finding like a synergistic effect on the efficiencies that are being gained.
That's a really, really good point, Travis. And I think it's worth like kind of elevating in that just because it works doesn't mean it's working well, right? Like I'm a big home do-it-yourselfer, hobbyist craftsman. And I know like there's ways that you can get the work done with a screwdriver instead of a chisel. But man, when you get the chisel, the job's just so much easier, right? So I think so much of what you just said, I hear that. It's easy to get complacent and think like, well, it's not great, but it's not working, right?
Right.
That idea of like continual improvement, always doing better, always moving the goalposts forward, I think is really important in strategy. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna throw you a little curveball, put you on the spot. It's okay. Only everyone is watching.
Okay,
And
fair enough.
if you can help explain how Merge is distinctly positioned to help align to the needs at Baptist and the solutions that they have in place.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. People who have been part of the agency life for a while have seen this methodology of mergers and acquisitions for a long time, right? I came over to Merge as an employee, and what I discovered was that they are assimilating this large group of acquisitions together into one functional organization. And what I have found is that Merge is uniquely positioned because it's built different.
Mhm.
Just foundationally, it's built different. The way I've seen this team, the executive leadership team, go about doing acquisitions and the intent that they put behind it to get the teams that are doing their respective technology the best and then absorb them into the company, but keep them doing that work at a really high level has been really incredible. Um, from there, they've also done very strategic hiring. And in that space, I've seen people come in that have extensive tenure and extensive knowledge about the platforms that they've been working in. So we have these really like organizations that have been merging together, and then people that have been coming, and all of this being assimilated into one functional organism. And on top of that, we've started with this foundation of actual marketing strategy and content generation. So not only do you have this really powerful team of people who are able to do technology implementation, but you also have the practitioners and the people that are actually executing on marketing strategy within the same organization. So we have not just the technology enablers, but we also have the people who are strategizing on new ways to utilize technology, all of us under the same roof, all of us interacting and collaborating together. And that really is a different way and a different approach that I've seen for a marketing organization like ours.
I love that. I love that. I mean, as shameless plugs go, Travis, that was 1,000%.
It's beautiful, right?
Got
I'm
you.
proud of it. I'm proud of it, is what it comes down to.
No, it's good. But honestly, I see the same thing in other aspects of what we do, like our 360 view of healthcare being provider, payer, and life science. Understanding that complete journey, whether it's an individual moving through a health system or your content moving through your supply chain. Yeah, I love that. Having the different aspects at the table really does make the difference. So thank you for
Yes.
that. All right, shifting focus back away from Merge, back to where it belongs with Alex and the Baptist group. Alex, from your perspective, given what Travis has said, which workflow changes had the biggest impact on the organization?
So it's funny, we're talking about digital here, but the biggest impact was actually before implementation. That mapping, uh, process of going step by step and putting this down on paper. Most teams had never really even seen their process visually before, so it brought a lot of hidden steps to light. Things that were only living in people's heads. We kind of went through that whole mapping process, and it helped spot redundancies and unnecessary steps. We were able to look at things and say, okay, what can we combine here? What can just be completely eliminated before we digitize this whole thing? That I think really brought about, again, trust with the team. And one thing I want to note, I couldn't have done any of this without the team that I have working on this. It's a small but very mighty team. I'm blessed to be working with them. They're incredible. I know that for some organizations, it's not possible to have a team dedicated to just this piece of work, but it definitely helps a lot because people see that there's not an end state. This
Mhm.
is always going to be evolving. We're going to continue to make it better. So we always tell people if you hate it, good, tell us because
Right.
we want to know. We want to make it better. We want to make it work for you. So don't feel bad telling us you hate it. Tell us, and we'll fix it. we'll work with you, and then we'll remap your process if we have to. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you're happy with it. So again, if even if you dedicate half of a person's time or even a quarter, just to make sure that it's always evolving. It's not something that you just, I've seen a lot of implementations where people just put a tool out there and it's like, okay, it's implemented, use it.
We did it.
Yeah, exactly. And it
Mhm.
and that actually to some degree was happening at Baptist with one of the groups where we had this tool that was put in place and then never touched again.
Mhm.
And all you would hear is this tool doesn't work. And it's like, no, the tool could have worked. It's just you're not working on that tool. You're not making it better.
Yeah, no, I love it. I feel like we're really starting to feel some themes kind of come out of this. I mean, Alex, you mentioned like building trust at the human level, and what a human-centric approach you all took to this very complicated, very technical process, like really trying to understand the individual stakeholders and their needs. And that I love what you said, if you hate it, tell us, right? That goes exactly back to what Travis was saying about transparency builds efficiency. If we don't face it, we can't fix it, right? I love that. When you think about that, you think about, I mean, the real journey, like over the last 2.5 years that you've been through with this, what challenges did your team face when implementing, and what did you do to get around those?
So I mean, still going back to, like I mentioned before, it's a big cultural shift going from tools that everyone's familiar with, like email and Excel and all these different, spreadsheets, whatever it is, and then moving all that to a centralized
Mhm.
platform, and continue to build that trust through that process. It's just making sure that teams know that you're listening and adapting to their needs, and documenting those processes. I've mentioned that a bunch of times, but it really is um, so important as you make that cultural shift. Showing teams that it's their workflows that are reflected in Workfront. It reduced a lot of the resistance for the tool and really bring the custom tool to their reality. And once that started happening, adoption really accelerated. It made their jobs easier, and they realized, and they're like, wow, this is something I could really use. And again, we keep pushing that same mantra that it's never going to be perfect, but we're
Mhm.
going to be improving the tool.
Oh, no, I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point. And really and truly, you're helping people along on a journey that, eh, Travis, I'll get on my soapbox for just 1 second because we talk so much about efficiency of automation and saving people time and even improve the quality of the delivery of the content, right? But what we don't talk about enough, in my opinion, is that we do things that aren't possible without automation and AI. Meaning, not that a human being couldn't do it, but you have a set number, and I know you have a relatively large marketing team for a healthcare system, but I know from working with you that the top complaint is still not enough people to do everything you want to do, right? That's the common challenge. That's what automation and AI is supposed to help with. And I really, really believe that when we implement it right and apply it to content supply chain, we do things that weren't possible before because we weren't going to spend the time. We didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough people. So, 100% everything you just said. But what I hear when you say that is now people are going to start spending time thinking about the art of the possible and not the logistics of how in the world am I going to get this content where it needs to get once I've written it, produced it, whatever. So, yeah, I love that so much. Well, that sounds simple, right? With workflows are optimized, everything's done, problem solved. No, no, not as much. No. Okay. So next, let's shift gears a little bit because that's specific to, that aspect of content ownership. But I want to think a little bit about the overall digital ecosystem of which content supply chain is a core highway, right? But is not the only highway. And Emily, I know you've been sitting there very patiently. I've not forgotten you and your beautifully colored background. So let's ask you a couple questions. Let me think. What are the hallmarks, and this could be specific to Baptist, but really just in general, what are the hallmarks of a successful digital ecosystem in today's healthcare landscape? I want to hear that because I know that's your focus. How is it unique to healthcare?
Yeah, I think what really drives a successful transformation is that focus on what the customer experience is, keeping that central, even from a content supply chain perspective, having a really clear vision and mission for your organization of how the work that you're doing is going to improve the patient experience, whether that is, getting them the right information that's relevant to them at the right time is critical, not just to motivate your own team around the tough transformational work that Alex was talking about, but also communicate the impact of this to broader stakeholders.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, and honestly, I think that is something that I'm so glad you said it because yes, it is all about the individual, it's about the quality of it, but there has to be an ROI, right? Because it's an investment in technology, people, and processes. So there has to be a return on that investment. So being able to surface that to leadership is such a key point to that I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we could do everything else right and fail on that one thing, and it would be tough to call the transformation a success, right? Like leadership has to see the value. It's such a good point.
Exactly. And having those metrics quantified of starting out along the process of, hey, we use all these different tools, like Alex mentioned, we used email, we used Excel, we use Slack or Teams or whatever it is. And we moved from all these different systems to one and look at all the time that it saved really helps drive that momentum of transformation forward.
That's a great point too. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so specific to Adobe and the solutions that drive more personalized patient-centric, excuse me, patient-centric interactions. Tell me a little bit about Adobe's products and solutions. How do they play and how do they make the world better for the individuals that are in the content supply chain?
Yeah, for sure. When we think about Adobe specific tools, we really think about in the context of it that we see it in healthcare, that Adobe's tools are really designed to help deliver that right information at the right time. If you think about the experiences that you receive on a retail or hospitality perspective, for many of the largest organizations, those are delivered with Adobe's tools. And we've done the work to say that you can deliver those same experiences from a healthcare perspective. So understanding who you are as a consumer and using that data to power both the content that's created and how it's delivered is really how Adobe activates those experiences.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. Thank you for that. And then, Travis, because you work a lot with the technologies in play, let's shift to focus a little bit. How does this relationship, this partnership, this, three wheels of the tricycle, so to speak, between Baptist, Adobe, and Merge, like how does that play into the overall strategy of helping healthcare organizations modernize digital infrastructure?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, uh, one of the things that I think is cool in working with Adobe, Adobe spends a lot of time, a lot of effort really engaging with their solution partners. You can hire any agency that has a skill set in a thing to go do the thing for you, but it's when you are working with Adobe and with a solution partner that they're paired together, that's when you get some really cool I don't know, optimizations is if I can use that term out of the relationship. You get both the creative solutioning of the solution partner and the creative solutioning of Adobe working together to solve your business need. And that's really a powerful combination. Having people who have expert level experience in developing and deploying this type of software is one thing, but having people who are actually the product owners able to jump into a call with you is an entirely different animal. So it really helps you as an organization to be able to move forward with that type of technology.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Now more general. And Alex, I have one more question for you before we jump to Q&A, but Trevor, sorry, Travis, I've got to ask, can you share tips from your own experiences, from what you've seen? Can you share tips on future-proofing digital platforms to handle all these evolving patient needs, right? There's so much changing right now. What can people do? Even if it's not the wholesale redo of the infrastructure like Baptist did, like what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that when you focus on something, you have the ability to change it, right? If you focus on it, you can measure it. If you can measure it, you can change it. That's the way I look at things.
Mhm.
Um, when I start thinking about future-proofing content supply chain for an organization, the first place that I start looking for is what are the inefficiencies that I have. And as I'm looking at this, I want to put some weight behind that as well, right?
Mhm.
I'm not just finding inefficiencies for finding inefficiency's sake, but recognizing that inefficiencies are critical for business, but they're also critical for your clientele, right? Your patients when you're dealing with healthcare. I have a significant, story of healthcare needs in my own family because we went through pediatric cancer with my daughter. And recognizing in that time frame the information that I needed to find and the information that I needed to consume at the right time was so vast. And just getting there, and not only what the information is, but the ability that I have to be able to consume that type of information. We're talking about pretty heavy medical terminology.
Mhm.
And what we have an opportunity to do in healthcare today is provide content that is not just medically accurate, but nationally consumable, to
Mhm.
your lowest common denominator consumable. And when we provide that type of content, that's where we're really getting to personalization that's one-on-one. And it's a need that we have kind of across the board in our nation today. So identifying these inefficiencies really helps us to get to the point where we can provide that level of content to our patients at their time of need. And that increases their level of care just by definition. When we talk about the content supply chain, we're looking at multiple technologies that are being integrated together. We want to recognize that technology supports and enables business process. So when I look at how I would future-proof my business, I would look at my business process first. How do I future-proof my business process? How do I make that efficient? And then I build the technology to support that.
Mhm.
And then lastly, as I look at delivery, what platforms am I using to actually get the content that has now been created to that end user? Because efficient delivery in the right methods to the right technology to the right platform at the right time puts it in front of the person that's supposed to be receiving it. So all of those kind of, I don't know, that would be my three-legged stool of
No, I love that. I love
future-proofing.
that. And I love specifically, like, and this is coming like you, I'm a technologist, and one of my favorite things to say is technology never solved anybody's problem. A person using technology solved that problem, right? So it's an important reminder. But you gave us one, and just I want to say thank you for sharing your personal story of your family and your loved ones, because it's such an important reminder. Because I am sure that we all immediately empathize with your scenario. And I know I thought immediately of a situation where I was trying to find healthcare information, and everything you said is true. And we have to remember that, that's something that we have that not everybody can say, right? And it means something. I know it means something to us here at Merge, but it's a really, really great reminder that when we say keeping the patient at the center, that's not a marketing tactic, right? Like that's part of the humanity that we experience in healthcare that makes a lot of this, even the some of the tougher struggles and the higher regulation and all of that. Like it makes it worth it. It makes it important. So thank you for that reminder. It's really, really important. All right, Alex, got one more for you, and then we'll shift gears. And it's the standard end of webinar question. What's next for Baptist Health? What goals are you looking to achieve? How do you feel like the end of 25 is going to look for you all?
Well, for us, really, it's continuing momentum, refining those workflows, continue to improve, ensuring that they're efficient and adaptable as needs evolve across the team. Things are always changing. We're going to continue to tighten the connection between Workfront and AEM assets. Another big piece is and we're really excited about is it putting in one of Adobe's newest tools, which is planning. We really believe that's going to bring a lot of visibility into, more visibility into timelines and resource allocation and strategic priorities. So that one we're really excited about putting that one in. And then, of course, AI. Can't talk tech without talking AI.
Yep.
There's a ton of stuff of AI going into Workfront and planning and assets, and we're excited to use those tools. So that's something that we really want to start bringing into the tools as we move forward. But really, the end goal is just build that connected, intelligent ecosystem, and provide delivery at scale. And I guess the end result, like we were talking about, and Travis was talking about, and you were talking about here, it's that exceptional patient-centered experience is really the end goal. I mean, all these things come together, but at the end, that's what we want to get to.
Love it, love it. Yeah. And I mean, and that's a representative end, right? Because there's no end. But I love
Ever.
you've mentioned that over and over and over again. I love that idea of ideation and iteration, just that is continually improving. Because yeah, to your point, an organization that thought that they had their CSC down pat, like their content supply chain was solid. 2 years ago, it was like, well, now we have AI and content gen, so we have to change everything, right? So there is no such thing as the end, but I do hope that as we move into the end of the year, you guys get to rest a little bit because I know you've been sprinting for quite a while now. Uh, so yeah, that's wonderful. So we've covered a ton of ground. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story with us with Baptist Story. Travis, for your expertise. Emily, for your point of view and understanding of the ecosystems. This is wonderful. So we're going to open up. We have a few questions. I'm going to start with one that came in while we were talking about Adobe products. So Emily, I'm going to tip this one to your way. And I think the question just in general, and I'd love to hear it from you because Travis and I might have a slightly different answer. So I want yours. Tell us about Firefly. Who's the audience of Firefly? Where do you see its place in healthcare?
Yeah. For sure. So Firefly, in short, is our generative AI tool. And I think the audience really can have many different answers because it's really built for everyone in different applications, but I'll answer it from an enterprise perspective. From an enterprise perspective, you can think about Firefly as a tool to create new images or modify existing imagery using AI. So think things that you may have used to had to use an agency for to create new content. Now you can go in, write a prompt and get an image generated, or go in, take an existing image, write a prompt and make some modifications to it. So the marketers, there's a huge application for them. So that's kind of the audience that we see from an enterprise perspective. We see a lot of people using it to make their workflows more efficient.
Yeah, and I, as we joked about, I'm heavily steeped in AI as a part of the job. And one of the things I love about Firefly in particular is it's pulling from your stock catalog too, right? So the fidelity of the imagery that's coming out isn't based on random internet searches where you have to worry like, oh, am I going to get in trouble because it skimmed somebody's images and they weren't supposed to. It's using Adobe stock photography, which is already high quality, already complete with the ecosystem. So just another, I think, great example of how Adobe is leveraging existing assets to create new products. So yeah.
Exactly. And it's the only tool from a proprietary standpoint that you don't have to worry about, hey, I pulled in this scraped image of some, copyrighted image that really wasn't supposed to be trained off of, because like you mentioned, this is based all off of Adobe's stock. It's really built for enterprises to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for that. I think that probably clarified for several people. Um, Let's take this question that's Alex for you. And so you talked a lot about the process change, and you mentioned the people as they were changing. But one of the things that was asked is what, from a cultural standpoint, what challenges do you feel like Baptist Health face when trying to centralize content management? Like, was there resistance? Were there pockets that had to be convinced a little bit more? Was there anything more macro level that you felt like you were working against? Let's get into the psychology of it a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned a little bit of it before, where it's kind of going from these familiar tools and email and spreadsheets, and a lot of it is just going back to asking the question, why are we doing this? Like like
Hmm.
like why is this process in place? And if you track it back far enough, if you ask, one person, they'll say, oh, ask this person. They taught me we do it this way, and they've been here longer, and okay, well, we go ask that person. And then you eventually end up getting back to something that had to do with maybe like a physical project. Like I think when in one process, we ended up finding out that the reason this process exists is because we had job jackets at
Oh,
one point. And if you remember job jackets, then you're as old as I am, and I just dated myself. But
Alex, I remember light tables. Okay, we're
I
that old.
I
Okay.
remember light tables. I remember all of that. I mean, I started in printing, so
Mhm.
I can go back to all those old processes, but they end up in place, and you don't even realize that that's how it ended up there, from something that was even before everything was digitized.
Yeah, that's crazy. So is that the most surprising thing? Like what were some of the surprises? Like that seems like I wouldn't have expected to hear that. Was there anything else that stands out as like, wow, I just can't even believe we found that out as we were working through this.
Yeah, I think for me that was one of the biggest ones. Finding those processes, it was astounding how far back some of these things can
Yeah.
go.
The
And
legacy. Yeah.
yeah, those legacy items, and when you map something on paper and physically, and kind of pull it out from people, a lot of these things are just in people's heads. So
Yeah,
when you pull it out and put it on the table, it's almost like like there's Always Sunny that scene with the yarn and everything. It's like a big meme. That's basically what you have to do. You have to put it up on the wall,
pulling it.
yarn going from process to process, and see what can be combined, eliminated, or what can take place within that system.
See, and I'm an Only Murders in the Building fan, so I would call that our murder board.
There
That's
you
my,
go.
but same thing, same thing. Emily, one thing that people are curious about, you spoke very specifically and very, very eloquently about Firefly, but when you think about AI more as a concept and really as a technology, right? How can AI help create more personalized, patient-centric experiences at scale while still maintaining that human touch that's so important in healthcare?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of it. The first is that if we really want to be able to create these experiences at scale, the reality is that most organizations do not have the resources, budget, time to scale up the creation of that personalized content in the same way that you would need in order to truly power those one-to-one experiences. If you think about going back to your slide earlier around, how many assets it ends up being, you just don't have the people needed to create those resources. So that's where AI comes in and says, how can I generate that at scale? But the other thing is that these tools are not designed to operate without a human in the loop. So you really have to think about, where in the processes do they make sense? Where are the checks and balances that we need to put in place? Where do we need to make sure that we have someone's eyes on this so that we're delivering the right content? Because it's not designed to, operate totally autonomously. It's designed to still have that person in the loop, watching over, what's going out and making sure that it adheres to brand standards. Because I think also, as organizations think about how to put AI in safely on a healthcare lens, there's much higher stakes. So when you think about some of the things like content creation that go out, they are some of the lower stakes compared to some of the things like
Yes.
patient interactions with a physician that are much higher stakes. And you might need a lot more iteration before you go there. Some of the marketing functions are great places to start.
Yeah, that's interesting. Alex, we just had a conversation about this like in the last few months, right? Like that internal ideation, like when we're concepting internally, is a great test bed for generative AI. And even as we start moving toward more agent-based services, because it's a safe space, right? We're sharing images with each other, we're sharing content. But yeah, Emily, I totally agree. For now and forever, the human element's going to be important because AI is getting better, it's getting more powerful, and it is making worse mistakes as it gets older and mature, right? And it needs us more than ever. So we're important to AI. We all know that. So thank you for that. Um, Travis, I got one more quick tactical one with you, and then I have a wrap-up question that I'd love each of you to take a turn answering, and that is, as I actually just posted in chat. So analytics is great. Analytics and reporting. So not the content itself, not the media, not the assets, but the analytics. Is that, kind of walk us through the relationship between the content supply chain and the analytics and reporting that come out?
Absolutely. I think that so fundamentally, technologically speaking, there are analytics tool sets for each individual platform that operate best within each individual platform. And then there are analytics tool sets that kind of operate across the board. Um, one of the really fun things that Adobe has released recently is content analytics. It's part of CJA, Customer Journey Analytics. And content analytics is actually identifying reasons why people are engaging with the content that is engaging well, right? So it's looking at, what content engaged well and why, like tactically, why did that particular image perform better than this other particular image? And it's a really fascinating use of AI in that tool set. As you go kind of around that, and you also have specifically analytics within Workfront that is tracking and mapping engagement and action throughout projects and tasks, et cetera, across the board. So you have the ability to then track not just your efficiency in your business process, but also the efficiency and impact of that content that has been generated from the business process. So now you can optimize your process and generate more content that has higher impact at the same time because the analytics suite is across this whole full tool set.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you're opening a whole another hour worth of discussion around understanding where you are in your marketing maturity journey. But yes, so well said. Thank you for that. Very helpful. Okay, since your mic is already on, I'll start with you, but and I'm going to give Emily and Alex a chance to think about this question, not you. Uh, one thought, okay? You can repeat something you said prior, but Emily and Alex, you can't repeat something somebody else said. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to an organization looking to start their modernization journey, specific to healthcare and the complexities that we deal with there? But just in general, if you could give one piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay, so this sounds a little self-serving, but my one piece of advice would be find someone who's done it. The reason being is that when I am looking at my own business process, if I even examine my own life, for example, I have the purview of what I have done and what I am doing, but someone externally who has done something different has a different perspective. When I engage with that person on my own life, I have the ability to actually go farther ahead than I do when I'm examining it myself. And having someone who has been through this process before and asked different questions to different organizations, heard their problems, heard their issues, and found their answers is really a huge level up in terms of going down this path.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it self-serving, but there is nothing wrong with recommending a strong partner. I mean, that's how we get through this world together, right? Love that answer. Uh, Emily, same question, your perspective.
Yeah, my advice would be start with the end in mind. So have that crystal clear vision of where it is that you're looking to go, and then work backwards and build the steps as you're going to progress to that. Helps make sure that you're, focused on the end goal and you're constantly marching towards that.
All right. That's wonderful. Thank you. And Alex, I gave you the most time to think about it because you're the client here. So it's your turn.
I would say stay open and transparent with your team. Really involve them in the process and all the different teams so you're all working together on this tool and it's not just being developed in a silo and then given out for everyone to use, because that's usually how people end up upset with what the tool looks like. And I'm cheating here. I'm giving you two. It's always evolve with the tool. Always continue to make it better. Always make sure that there is no end state. It's a living, breathing tool.
Yeah, no, those beautiful answers, both. And you don't need my permission. You're the boss here. So good answers. Um, so that's wonderful. Thank you all, Emily, Travis, Alex, for sharing your time, sharing your thoughts with us. I'll give you a quick closing thought from me, and then we'll let everybody back to their day. You know, to build on what everybody said, if I had to give one piece of advice, I would say always, always, always keep the person at the center, right? It is so easy to think of these problems as a process problem. But process comes from people. Process is nothing but a bunch of human beings who got around and decided to do things a certain way. And technology is never the answer, right? Because I love my iPhone, my dad loves his Android. We argue about it endlessly, but we both use it to do the exact same thing. So the intent of what we want to do, what we're hoping to accomplish is the key here. So just to build on everything that this trio of geniuses has said, if we keep our employee at the center and we understand that if they're unhappy, right? I think, Alex, you said it in our opening question. If you hate it, tell us, because we have to have that relationship or we cannot solve the process and the technology challenge. So keep it about the people and you're probably on the right track. If you've got any more questions, we are all around on LinkedIn and throughout the web sphere. So don't hesitate to reach out. And for those who are listening and who submitted some questions, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. And with that, I say thank you and have a great afternoon.